So I thought this would be a fun little fanfiction idea to kind of throw out there, see what people would think of this one. And this one, as you can see, is a Marvel Hey Arnold. A Marvel Hey Arnold story. Now, it's always been like my headcanon that Hillwood was kind of like somewhere in New York, like a district in New York, because it was clearly supposed to be that in some capacity. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to be like, yeah, Hillwood is somewhere in New York, and the Marvel universe, it's like the suburbs just outside New York, and the Marvel characters are just in this story are in here. So what this is like basically an anthology story of each character from Hey Arnold encountering a Marvel superhero in just a, holy crap, I just met a so-and-so character, and they go back and tell their friends. So our first one is, of course, Hey Arnold and Spider-Man. So in this story, Arnold is mugged by not just one thug, but a group of thugs. And it turns out that it's Frankie from that episode where he was more or less tried to be coerced into stealing for Frankie. So Frankie's that thug kid who tries like, yeah, Arnold, you're cool, and then he's like, grooming him to be a thief. So in here, Frankie's back and is more or less just bullying and trying to mug Arnold for money because he and his friends are down on their luck. And it just so happens when Arnold calls for help, Spider-Man hears him. But the thing is that Spider-Man, this isn't like friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. This is, I'm going to kick your ass into your head, Spider-Man. I'm going to kick your ass so hard it's going to go into your body and outside your head. Because even, when Arnold talks to Gerald and the rest of the gang about meeting Spider-Man, because it's like, holy crap, it's Spider-Man! But then he sees like how brutal Spider-Man is to these guys, and it turns out when you pick on children in Spider-Man's opinion, you don't get friendly neighborhood. You get the angry Spider-Man, because he's like, you don't mess with kids and get away with it. Like he doesn't kill them, but like he's completely just brutal to them because he's like, you put your hands on kids, you don't get fun jokey Spider-Man. So Spider-Man just wrecks house on Frankie and the others and just webs them up. And then when he looks back at Arnold, he's like, hey man, what's up? Sorry you had to see that. I just don't like when kids, I don't like bullies. And I don't like when, someone thinks they can pick on children in my neighborhood. And then the fun thing is, like, I wanted to have, he starts out as, like, kind of telling his friend, like, it's a story told by Arnold. And Arnold's telling, like, yeah, I always thought Spider-Man was, like, funny and whatnot. But, like, when I first saw him just wail on Frankie and his friends, I was like, oh my god, he's like a monster. He's scary. And I think a lot of people forget, like, how scary Spider-Man can be if you utilize him that way. Like, so Spider-Man, of course, like, Arnold continues the story and goes, then I see the real Spider-Man. After he saved me, he, like, gave me a web swing around the city and took me back home. Like, he dropped me off and then swung away. So yeah, then he sees as the story continues, he tells me, like, saw the real Spider-Man. Like, yeah, he was fun, he was cracking jokes, but when he, like, was beating on Frankie and his goons, that was like, yeah, I'm so lucky he's not a villain. But then he was like, yeah, Spider-Man's actually cool. Spider-Man is really awesome. So the next story follows Harold. And Harold, in his story, is him being a typical fat-ass bully that, he's known for. And he's kind of picking on some younger kids. And someone comes up behind him and grabs him and yanks him to turn around. And he's like, and Harold's like, who's the butthead who wanted to pick a fight with me? And the guy grabs and pulls around. It's the Thing. It's Ben Grimm. And he goes, me, chump. So, of course, Harold goes into bitch mode, as he so often does. And he's like, don't hurt me, Mr. Thing. And he's like, Christ. So that whole story is basically the Thing kind of giving Harold some lessons, because he's like, I used to be you. Like, I used to be a punk kid who just picked on everyone because I thought it'd make me better and make me stronger. It didn't. It made me weaker. It made me, in the long run. And he's like, is it because you were bullying, I'm going to turn into a giant rock monster? He's like, oh god, you're dumb. Holy crap, the modern day educational system is screwed. But yeah, it's more or less a story of just the Thing talking, like, mentoring Harold to not be an ass. that kind of story he gets ever so often in the show. So there you go. The next one is centered around Gerald, and Gerald's story is where he gets accosted by a couple of cops who are like, they see him skateboarding late at night. He's like, "Oh man, I'm late. My mom's gonna kill me when I get home." And he's skateboarding late at night, and he gets accosted by a couple of cops who are like, "What you doing out here, boy?" They're just because he's black. They're just hassling him, and then when Harold accidentally drops something out of his pocket, he reaches down to go get it, and they're like, "Gun!" And one of them grabs it, and then Hand comes in and just crushes the gun and throws it away. It's Luke Cage. And Luke's like, "What seems to be the problem, cops? What happened? What seems to be the problem, officer?" And they're like, nothing, sir. The suspect was the kid. You mean the suspect's a little kid who just wants to just go home, and you bothering him. You got a problem here. We got a problem here, officers." And they're like, "No, sir. We'll be going." So Luke takes the kid home, and he's like, "You're going to run into that. Trust me, you're going to see that a lot. But the point is, you don't hit back, but you also keep fighting." And he's like, "I don't get it. You will one day." So there's Luke's story with Gerald. The next one is with Helga and Moon Knight. So why Helga and Moon Knight? Well, I'll tell you. So in Helga and Moon Knight's story, essentially Helga is more or less just kind of being creepy about being wanting to be with Arnold, and in her little shrine, and then she hears a noise in her room. She goes out of her closet where she's keeping the shrine and sees Moon Knight bleeding on the floor. He crawled into her room after getting into a fight with Shadow Knight. So he's bleeding on the floor, and he's like, "Oh, okay, oh god, oh my conch, this hurts." So Helga has to keep Moon Knight from being seen by her parents, and also being caught by Shadow Knight. But then he's he actually takes Helga's Arnold shrine and switches it around to make it look like a Khonshu shrine, and he prays to it, and then he gets healed. And he's like, "Thanks, bye." He's like, "Bye, crazy kid," and he swings off. He's like, does he not I'm crazy? Sure, yeah. The guy with multiple personalities. He's the sane one. Okay. So then we have Rhonda with another character, and she's at this big ball. Her parents are rubbing elbows with the socially of Hillwood, and then a group of armed thugs come in with automatic rifles. And among those people who are at this fund was one Danny Rand. You thought it was going to be Tony Stark, but nope, it's Iron Fist. And Danny Rand changes into Iron Fist, and he just comes out, and Rhonda's watching him in awe of seeing Iron Fist. And she's like, "Iron Fist? I was kind of hoping for Iron Man, but oh well." And she even helps Danny when she's fighting these thugs. She grabs a little silver tray and knocks one out right when he's about to shoot Iron Fist. So yeah, there's the Iron Fist one. Then we have Sid, who meets the Punisher, and in that story, Sid is essentially becomes like a runner, not so much a drug runner, but more just a guy who gets little items for somebody, who's turns out he's a kind of a gangster. And when Sid drops something and loses something he was sent to go get, he gets accosted and is about to get his ass beat. And in walks in this bar Frank Castle, and they're like, he's wearing a trench coat, and they're like, "Hey, buddy, you see we're busy," and they're about to wail on Sid, and he just undoes the trench coat and reveals the skull, and they're like, "Oh fuck me, Punisher!" And the Punisher sees Sid, and he goes, "No. It's too I can't afford to have collateral damage. The kids here, I'm not gonna shoot in a room full of children. B, I'm not gonna kill anyone in front of a child. Yes, I know there are comics where Punisher does kill people in front of kids, but let's have Frank be somewhat sane in this story, please and thank you." So yeah, Punisher doesn't kill any of them, but he does fuck them up pretty bad with a pool table, a pool cue and whatnot. And then we have Mr. Wynn with Daredevil. And in this one, Mr. Wynn, in his story, Mr. Wynn is his little restaurant is constantly being attacked by a group of thugs who want him out for being, Asian, and they're like, "Get out of here, Chinaman," and all that. And it's like, I'm Vietnamese. Like, why are you mad at me? He's like, "Doesn't matter. You're one of them, one of those monsters who brought the plague." And someone at the restaurant is Foggy Nelson and Matt Murdock, and Matt's like, "I know who I'm fucking up today." So Matt sneaks out, changes into Daredevil, and comes flying in and just starts hammering the shit out of these guys. And he's like, if you ever need a defense attorney to prosecute these guys, I know someone. Isn't that right, Mr. Nelson? They're like, yeah, Daredevil. Matt, what the fuck? So there you go, guys. So you guys tell me in the comments below, what did you guys think of this? Like it, hate it, just comment below, let me know. And once again, if you haven't already, hit the link below, head on over to my Patreon. And other than that, I'm Mr. Multiverse. I'll see you next time in the Multiverse.